That's good for me. Yes, sir. Revolutions. You follow?
Revolutions.
Keep the clients on the Ferris wheel. And it goes. The park is open 24/7, 365. Every decade, every goddamn century. That's it. Name of the game. How kitty?
Thank you.
Come on.
Peace to the fam. It's the Hood Mystic representing www.hoodmystic.com. Today we're talking about the archetype of the inner child and the twin soul, which is synonymous with the sign Gemini and the tarot card, the Lovers. And putting them together, it forms the archetype of the inner child, and I'm going to explain why. So, in archetypes, we're relating the celestial concepts to the mortal concepts, and no other constellation identifies this more so than Gemini, which is Latin for twins, which could be confusing. If you don't have a twin, you might think that it doesn't apply to you, but the reality is that it applies to everyone, because the twin that they're referencing is the twin that is the soul. And so Gemini is an air sign, so it's about having a mental idea of how this thing works. So one would say, how do I do inner child work? How do I actually do it? Well, in reference to Gemini, you have to have a mental idea or awareness or a cognizance of the thoughts that you have. Gemini is also a mutable sign, which means it's adaptable. So when you reference the trickster or you reference the messenger, it's about being mutable. It's about being changeable, because these individuals show up differently depending on the circumstances. Another way that we connect this to the inner child is because Gemini is connected to the thymus gland. It rules over the thymus gland.
Thymus. The thymus is a bilobed lymphoid organ situated in the superior mediastinum. It is usually prominent in children and gradually increases in size till puberty, when it weighs about 40 grams. Thereafter, it atrophies and gets infiltrated by fibrous and fatty tissue.
Now, the thymus gland is a mysterious gland and is inactive in most adults, but it is active and vibrant up until adolescence. From childbirth to adolescence, it grows and then it reaches a certain point where it stops. And so this represents our inner child. This represents our twin soul archetype. In other words, it represents the innocence within adults that's literally shut off. It literally is not activated. So when they say activate your heart chakra, or when they say heal your inner child, it's more or less of activating these hormones that this actual gland secretes, but no longer secretes in adults. But let me digress and talk about the Lovers, which is associated with Gemini. So lovers, or to love, is a mental concept of understanding. This mental level implies having an intelligent grasping on the mechanics of consciousness. It's one thing to love, but to be a lover is an actual action that you have to have a mind to it. It's not a easy, simple thing to love and to know how to love. And so when we're separated from our soul and we don't understand that we have a soul, or we have a twin, then this creates confusion about life, because we don't understand our larger part. So the quest or the journey is about finding yourself. Now the irony or the trick, right, like the trickster, is that what we're looking for external is really internal. and this creates a greater understanding and learning the mental aspects of how to activate your heart and heal your inner child. And this alleviates that initial confusion that we're born with when we don't know that our soul is active and our soul is actually a twin. So this connection between the lovers, between ourselves and our soul, represents the divine connecting with the mundane, and once was viewed as opposites are actually one and the same, which our souls and ourselves are twins. So combining the Gemini and the lovers as an archetype, it really shows us our inner child, and then how we activate our inner child, how we heal our inner child. How do you do this? We have to learn the art of storytelling, decoding messages, remaining youthful, staying interested or being interesting, and also having a sense of humor. This is what this archetype is about. So, and these are the different ways that we can heal our inner child. Now, I could do a whole video for hours and hours about how to heal the inner child, but the reality is that we all have different inner childs that need to be healed. So the best thing that I could do is talk about how to heal your heart chakra, how to balance your heart chakra, and how to balance it is to establish unconditional love. And from that unconditional love, you follow your heart and you don't take things too hard, because taking things too hard is actually triggering the fear and shutting down that inner child because it's so afraid of results. And so to bring this into further context, Gemini is based on the mythology of Castor and Pollux. Castor was immortal and Pollux was immortal. When Castor died on the battlefield, Zeus was moved by Pollux's love for his brother, so Zeus agreed to keep them together, so they existed in the heavens as Gemini, and then the other half of the time they existed in the underworld or Earth. So this actual star system, which is Gemini, is telling a larger story about human life. And they say that Gemini rules the nervous, respiratory, shoulders, arms, legs, hands, fingers, and also the thymus gland. Now the thymus gland from birth produces T cells to fight illness. During adulthood, it stops producing T cells and goes into atrophy. And after it stops working around the age of 50, it just stops producing T cells. So whatever T cells we have, that's what we need to combat illness. So this is why older people get sicker than younger people. Generally, it's because of the thymus gland active in fighting off diseases and illnesses. And then when you get older, it's not so strong. But we can activate our thymus gland in adulthood. We just have to know how. And the way that we activate it is through unconditional love and activating the heart chakra. So let's just explain a little bit further what happens with the inner child biologically. So from infancy up to our 14th year, the red marrow in our bones make all of the blood, and most of them are supplied by the thymus gland, which is the largest in the fetus. And this is coming from our mom. So the blood that pumps through our body is made from the thymus gland, which is a maternal thing. But as we grow older, our pituitary system creates our blood and our thymus gland does not. So as it were, when we get a little bit older, we start to make our own blood and we no longer need the thymus gland. And so from that point, we really deal with the ego. We deal with ourselves. But what are we losing? We're losing that sense of connection to the family. And so it's a real balance that needs to take place within us based upon rites of passage and things of that nature that most Western society children don't experience or know much about. So the main part that we want to kind of focus on is really understanding how to activate this. And one of the ways to actually beat on your chest lightly when you wake up and hum something sort of like what they did on The Wolf of Wall Street when they were explaining how to make money, was when they were beating on their chest and humming, where it is a movie thing, but the real science is that they're activating their thymus, they're activating their God level, they're activating their soul and their ability to fight off or protect them from radiation. And radiation can affect you in many different ways. But ultimately, viewing this from a psychological aspect, is that this actual gland is awakening in humanity as a whole, and for the individual, it's time for us to activate this archetype and awaken the inner child and become aware of its existence, because this is a superpower. This is the awakening of our soul. Even more so, if you look up thymus in the Greek language, it literally means soul. So connecting the thymus to Gemini is connecting the soul to the human being, and understanding that that is your twin, that is everyone's twins. And if we all awoken to this understanding, this mental understanding within itself could heal the world exponentially. So with that being said, I just want to thank you guys for listening. Hopefully this video was helpful and allowed you to understand your energy and how you can actually tap into your energy, heal your inner child, awaken your twin soul, and become whole again. This is what Gemini represents. This is what this archetype represents. So just remember, have fun, tell stories, be creative, activate that inner child, because it's important in your spiritual journey. I'm the Hood Mystic, representing hoodmystic.com. Be sure to utilize the links in the description to read the article that's associated with this video, and continue to support me and my channel. I really thank you. The links for donations, books, all of that gonna be in the descriptions. And I just want to thank y'all for y'all support, and stay tuned for our next video where we deep dive into Cancer. Peace.